Ever heard of AI? Like actually writing laws, not just tossing around ideas, but drafting the actual legislation.
Whoa.
Wild, right? That's just one of the things we're going to unpack today as we deep dive into the Connecticut Cannabis Small Business Alliance.
The CCSBA.
Yeah, the CCSBA.
Right.
So they're all about empowering these small cannabis businesses in Connecticut.
Which is huge, right? I mean, this industry is changing so fast. Laws are just popping up everywhere.
Exactly. And they offer a ton of resources. But the thing that really caught my eye was their emphasis on AI.
Yeah, they've really gone all in on it, haven't they?
They have a whole section called their AI Arsenal.
AI Arsenal.
It sounds kind of intense for a small business support group, don't you think?
It does sound a little intimidating when you put it like that, but I think it really speaks to their commitment to giving these businesses like the best and most up-to-date tools they can. Like they've got this thing called Cannabis GPT.
Okay, Cannabis GPT. Now that sounds interesting. How does that even work for like a small business owner? What does that actually look like?
So imagine you're running your small business and you're trying to figure out if this new cannabis strain is right for your customers, right?
Yeah.
Cannabis GPT, it's like having this digital consultant who analyzes everything about that strain. Like it looks at its properties, potential benefits, drawbacks, even suggests pricing based on all this market data. It's pretty wild.
So you don't even need to hire like a consultant. You get a 24/7 cannabis expert on call. But they're not just like giving business advice though, are they? They're getting into the weeds with like the legal side of things too.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting. So they've created these tools, Legislation Writer GPT and Public Testimony Writer GPT.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are AI tools that are designed specifically to help navigate those really complicated legislative processes.
Wow. I mean, I didn't even realize people were using AI to write public testimony. That's crazy. That is some forward thinking.
Absolutely.
And it makes sense though, right? I mean, the regulations in this industry are so complicated. You really need all the help you can get. I mean, that kind of support could be make or break for a small business.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about providing software. It's about giving these businesses an actual voice, a way to be heard by lawmakers, and that's powerful stuff.
It makes you wonder if, like, in the future, understanding this complex legislation is going to be less about lawyers and more about knowing how to use the right AI tools.
Yeah.
Like that could be a game changer, not even just for cannabis, but for every industry.
Yeah, it's a whole new world. But even with all this tech, the CCSBA seems to get that it's only one part of the equation.
Right. So it's not all algorithms and like virtual handshakes.
Sure.
What else are they doing to support their members?
Yeah, so they do a lot of the traditional stuff too, like networking events.
Right.
So these businesses can connect, share their experiences, and then they have educational resources.
Yeah.
Keep everyone up to date on the latest developments, rules, and regulations. And then they actually get involved in advocacy work to try and help shape cannabis legislation in Connecticut.
So it's like they're offering this one-stop shop for everything cannabis, from like understanding the plant itself to navigating the legal maze. It's pretty impressive. But you know what really piqued my interest is their focus on this advocacy work. I mean, it's one thing to just give people tools, but it's a whole other level to actually roll up your sleeves and fight for someone's interests.
Yeah, you can tell they're really passionate about it. For example, they have a whole section on their website dedicated to public testimony.
Oh, wow.
They're encouraging their members to get out there, make their voices heard on the issues that really matter.
So it's like they're not just handing people a megaphone and saying good luck. They're showing them how to use it. That's really cool. So they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Do they have any like concrete examples of successful advocacy work? Have they actually made a difference?
They were really opposed to this bill, HB 5150.
HB 5150.
Yeah, they thought it was going to be really bad for local CBD stores.
Hold on. HB 5150, what was the main issue there, and how did the CCSBA even get involved?
So from what I understand, the details are a little fuzzy, but it seemed like they thought this bill would really hurt those smaller CBD businesses in Connecticut. So they got their members together, urged them to contact their representatives. They basically used their platform to try and sway the legislative process.
That's a perfect example of how they're bridging that gap between technology and taking action. Like they're not just about AI and fancy algorithms.
Yeah.
They really understand the human side of this business and the power of actually advocating for what you believe in.
It's a cool mix. I mean, they're using those traditional lobbying tactics, but also adding that tech edge. It seems to be working for them, leveling the playing field so these smaller businesses can have a fighting chance.
It makes you wonder if this model could work for other industries too. Like imagine if craft breweries or independent bookstores had something like this, providing these AI tools and then also fighting for them at the state level.
That's an interesting thought.
Right.
It's like they took a page from Silicon Valley with all the AI and native stuff, but they're using it in this really traditional industry. Maybe this is the blueprint for how smaller businesses can not just survive, but actually thrive in this crazy competitive world.
So we've talked about what they do and how they operate. But to really grasp the importance of what they're doing, we need to zoom out and look at the big picture. What is this, them embracing AI and all this tech? What does it tell us about the future of business in general, not just cannabis?
It's huge, right? It shows just how much AI is becoming a part of everything. We're talking healthcare, finance, and now, as we're seeing, even cannabis.
It's one thing to see Google and Amazon using it, but to see smaller organizations like the CCSBA, especially in a field that's been kind of stigmatized like cannabis, it really makes you realize how much things are changing. But what does this actually mean for the average person? For that small business owner who's just trying to make ends meet, is this a good thing, a bad thing?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? On the one hand, having these AI tools so readily available could really level the playing field. Just like the CCSBA is doing with cannabis, we could see this in all sorts of industries.
So instead of your local shops getting crushed by these big corporations, AI could give them the tools to fight back, maybe even win.
Precisely. AI could give them the advantage when it comes to marketing, customer service, even making better business decisions.
It's exciting to think about, but I got to imagine there are some downsides too. It can't all be sunshine and roses, right?
Of course not. With any new tech, there are always going to be challenges, like job displacement, for instance. AI is getting smarter, more capable of doing things humans used to do. It's bound to happen.
It's like those self-checkout things at the grocery store. What happens when it's not just a checkout line, but an AI running the whole store?
Right. And while some people say new jobs will pop up to replace the old ones, it's still a worry, especially for those industries where a lot of the work is done by hand.
And it's not just about losing jobs, is it? It's about who has access to all of this in the first place. We've been talking about the CCSBA and how they're making these tools available, but what about the people who can't afford it or don't even know how to use a computer? This whole digital divide thing could get even worse, don't you think?
Absolutely, and that's why what the CCSBA is doing is so important. It's not just about the technology itself, but the education and the support that comes with it. If we want everyone to benefit, we need more organizations like them.
It feels like we're at a turning point. This whole story with the CCSBA and how they're helping these businesses, it's like a preview of what the future could look like. A future where AI is everywhere, and it's up to us to decide how it gets used.
And the CCSBA is showing us that it can be used for good, to empower the little guy. It'll be interesting to see what they do next.
That's what's so fascinating about this whole thing. The CCSBA is blending technology, business, and social good in a way that we haven't really seen before. Who knows what the future holds, but they're definitely a group to watch. Well, there you have it. We've gone from AI drafting laws about weed to talking about the future of work and everything in between. It's a lot to think about, but that's what we do here on The Deep Dive. We dig into these complex issues so you don't have to.
And hopefully spark some interesting conversations along the way.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of the CCSBA, I'm left with one question. If this model, this combination of AI tools and real-world support can work for small cannabis businesses, could it work for others? Could we see similar alliances popping up for farmers, teachers, artists, anyone who's struggling to keep up in this rapidly changing world? The possibilities, just like AI itself, are endless.